Hey there, Heather, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to another Stone Cold Hockey thing. We are in the 1971 season now, 70-71, so 14 teams are there. Two teams, Los Angeles and California, somehow managed to qualify and will be going to the quarterfinals alongside the winners of these six preliminary round matches. We have the Rangers versus Buffalo, Boston, Pittsburgh, Montreal, Detroit, St. Louis, Toronto, Philly, Chicago, and Vancouver, Minnesota. Bear in mind, these are the 1970-71 teams, so we'll see what happens. Game 1 of Rangers-Buffalo sees the Rangers win 4-1 as Jackman beats Joe Daly. Floyd Smith for the expansion Sabres from Marshall and Fleming, but the Rangers score Dave Bowden coming back to Jean Rattel, Vic Hadfield, and Andre Dupont. Moose Dupont playing for the Rangers? Yeah, that happened. I know he's a Philly guy. Boston-Pittsburgh game 1 saw Boston win 5-1 as Cheevers beat Smith. Is that Suitcase Smith? I don't know. But Pittsburgh, Sean Porterfield from Sil Apps Jr. and Morrison. The Boston 5 goals. Wayne Cashman, Phil Esposito, Johnny Busick, and then Esposito finished up a hat trick. Montreal-Detroit game 1 sees Montreal win 9-3 as Vachon was in net against Jim Rutherford. Detroit was porous. Alex Delvecchio, Nick Libet, and Tim Ecclestone for the Red Wings, but the has 9 goals. Jacques Lemaire, John Ferguson, Yvan Cournoyer, J.C. Tremblay, Bobby Sheehan, Ferguson again, Cournoyer again, Mark Tardif, and Frank Mahavlich. St. Louis, Toronto, the Leafs win in St. Louis 4-3 as Bernie Perron, yeah, he was a Leaf at one time, beat Glenn Hall. Brian Sutherland, Frank St. Marseille, and Jim Lorenz. Kitchener with the goals for St. Louis. Toronto goals, Mike Pellick, Billy McMillan, who went on to do better stuff with Atlanta. Or was that Bob McMillan? But anyway, Norrie Ullman for the Leafs. Yeah, remember his run for the Red Wings in 1965? Yeah, he's asleep. Chicago beats Philly 4-1, big win. Esposito beats Bruce Gamble. Under the cloud, they only go for the Flyers. That's before they were the Brunswick Bullies. Blackhawks goals by Jim Pappen, Bobby Hull, Jerry Pinter, and Pitt Martin. Vancouver, Minnesota, game 1 sees Vancouver win in overtime. Dunk Wilson beats Gump Worsley, so big win for the expansion Canuckles. Minnesota goes by Brian Harvey and Murray Oliver, moving on from Toronto and Boston. Vancouver goes by Johnson and Andre Boudria. Overtime power play after Harvey got a tripping call. Doug Johnson from Talon and Cullen. Well, actually, I just need to know. Danny Johnson. That's what his name is. Okay. Okay, game 2, Boston-Pittsburgh. To start off with, Boston wins 6-2 on home turf. Cheevers beats Les Binkley. Pittsburgh goes by Dean Prentice and Jack Stewart. Boston goes by Ken Hodge Sr., Hodge again, or Jim McKenzie, Bobby Orr, and Ed Westfall. Montreal-Detroit game 2 sees the Red Wings lose 4-2 in Montreal as Vachon beats Gray. Detroit goes by Red Berenson. Yeah, he was a Red Wing. I know he was a Blue at one time. And Ron Harris. Montreal goes by Frank Mahavlich. Then Mahavlich again, Mark Tardif, and Bobby Sheehan. Game 2, St. Louis, Toronto. Toronto in overtime. Barry Prompt beat Bernie Winkley. St. Louis, Gary Unger scored in regulation from Picard Boudreau. Leafs had scored on the power play. Paul Henderson. Canada 72 from Bobby Bond and Brian Spencer. And then Guy Trottier at 1806 from Jim McKinney and Dave Keelan. So the Leafs are up 2-0. Chicago's up 2-0 in their series, 7-3 over the Flyers. Espo beats Doug Favell. Philly goes by Gendron, Chris Schmaltz, and Gary Dornhofer. Chicago goes Bobby Hall, Dennis Hall, Bobby Hall, Chico Mackey, Stan Mikita, and Chico Mackey. Minnesota beats Vancouver in Vancouver. Worsley beats Gardner, and Minnesota does make it 1-1. Vancouver goes by Gary Rizzuto, Mark Hall, and Wayne Mackey. Minnesota goes by Lou Nanny, went on to be a good GM. Bill Goldsworthy, Waterloo, Bill Goldsworthy, and Danny Grant. And Rangers Buffalo game 2 sees the Rangers win 5-1. So Vermoon beats Joe Daly. Buffalo goes by Eddie Shack. He was a Sabre. Jean Rattel, Bob Nevin, Rod Seeley, Dave Ballin, and terrible Ted Irwin and Frank. Break the walls, yeah! Makes it 5-1 Rangers. Game 3, Montreal Detroit. They start off first, and Montreal wins 5-2. Kenny Dryden against Jim Rutherford. Dryden was a rookie, remember. Detroit goes by Gordie Howe and Nick Libet. Yeah, Howe is still around. Cournoyer, Guy Lapointe, Pointeau, Claude Rose, Yvon Cournoyer, and J.C. Tremblay scoring for the Montreal Canadiens. St. Louis, Toronto. Toronto wins 6-3 as Jacques Plante. Yeah, Toronto had Plante and Perron. Beat Glenn Hall. St. Louis goes by Cam Cameron, Carl Brewer. That can't be right, Carl Brewer. Wow, and Frank St. Messiah. Toronto goes by Nick Norman, Ronnie Ellis, Paul Henderson, Guy Trottier, and Normie Allman. So Allman they're doing their jobs. Game 3 for Philly, Chicago. Sees the Chicago Blackhawks win 4-1 as Espo beat Favel. Philly got a goal by Don Schock, but goals by Jerry Korak, King Kong Korak, Jim Pappen, and Brian Campbell. But not the Brian Campbell, the defenseman in the 2000s. Game 3, Vancouver, Minnesota. Minnesota prolongation. Manigo beats Gardner. Danny Grant scored from Murray Oliver and Ted Harris in regulation. Vancouver got a goal by Garth Rizzuto from Rosie Paymont and Hall. But in overtime, Charlie Burns from Murray Oliver and Ted Harris. Rangers Buffalo saw the Rangers take a 3-0 series lead as Vermeulen beats Daly. Buffalo was close. Richie Anderson, Ken O'Shea, and Jerry Meehan scoring for the Sabres. Ranger goals by Bob Nevin, Ted Irvin, break the walls down. Walt Kachuk, Kitchener, and Rod Gilbert. Boston-Pittsburgh Game 3 saw Boston win 4-2. So 5 of the 6 preliminary series could be over. Boston wins 4-2 as Eddie Johnston beats Smith. Pittsburgh goals by Bill Blackburn and Dean Prentice. They're up 2-0, but Boston proved too much. Fred Stanfield, Ed Westfall, Wade Carlton, and Donnie Marcotte scoring. Remember, this was the season the Sabres in 71 were supposed to win the Stanley Cup for the second straight year, but they got their ass whipped by Montreal. Anyway, St. Louis, Toronto. Did Toronto make the sweep? The answer is yes, they did. Bernie Perron beats Ernie Weekly, and the Leafs will go on to the quarterfinals. Guy Morrison and Jim Lorenz, Kitchener. They make it 2-0, but the Leafs score Dave Keon, Ron Ellis, and then Davey Keon. Yeah, Keon was still around. Remember, the World Hockey Association wasn't around until 1972. So this is 71. Chicago, did they sweep? The answer is yes, they did. They took overtime. Espo beat Favel. Chicago, Pitt Martin with both goals in regulation. Philly, Gary Dornhoff with both goals in regulation. But at 15:28, Stan Mikita has third from Bill White and Patty Stapleton. And the Blackhawks sweep the Flyers. Minnesota beats Vancouver 3-2 as Manigo beats Charlie Hodge. Vancouver, Paul Pupil and Tom Taylor scoring for the Canucks. Danny Grant scored twice and Charlie Burns was the hero. The Sabres will not be swept 6-3. Dave Dryden beats Shields Vermeulen. Rangers did score 3 goals. Sean Mattel, Bob Nevin, and Brad Park. Buffalo goes by Skip Krejci, Jerry Meehan, Ron Anderson, Gilbert Perreault. About time he showed up. Jerry Meehan and Larry Keenan. Boston-Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh avoids the sweep, as Cheevers was hoping for the sweep, but Pittsburgh didn't. Boston did score Ed Westfall, Jim McKenzie, and Wayne Cashman. Pittsburgh goes by Greg Polis, Wayne Boyer, Greg Polis, and then Kenny Schenkel was the winner. And in Game 4, Montreal-Detroit. Detroit wins 8-7, so 3 series could have ended, but no, 8-7, as Vachon faced Don McLeod. Montreal was up 7-4 and they blew it. Well, Montreal had the 7 goals in regulation. Cournoyer, Lemaire, Peter Mahovlich, Beliveau, Tartif, and Phil Roberto. Detroit had goals by Alex Delvecchio, Rick Berenson, and Bob Day. And then in the third period, it all fell for flat. Montreal gave up 2 goals on the power play. Alex Delvecchio and Nick Libet. And then they had the empty net. Tom Webster scored. And then in overtime at 14:53, Hal from Robitaille and Bergman. So Montreal cannot get the sweep. Anyway, Game 5, Minnesota-Vancouver. We're going to do that one first. And Minnesota wins 5-3. They lost Game 1, but they won the next 4. Gump Worsley beats Charlie Hodge, former Montreal teammates. Vancouver, Wayne Mackey, Andre Boudreau, and Randy Cullen scored, but Minnesota, Danny Grant, Jude Duran, Charlie Burns, Danny Grant again, and then Charlie Burns iced it. Did the Rangers win in 5 over the Sabres? The answer is yes, they did. 4-1. Home win for Phil Mune over Dave Dryden. Atkinson did score for Buffalo, but Rangers got goals by Dave Ballin, Bruce McGregor, Dave Ballin with a hat trick. Nice job. So the Rangers move on. Boston will move on. 5-1. Johnston beats Smith. Boston goals by Dallas Smith, Phil Esposito, Derek Sanderson, Jim McKenzie, and Nancy Westfall. Keith McCreary scored for Pittsburgh, but it was all too late. And Montreal-Detroit. That series ends 6-1 Montreal. Phil Meyer in net for Montreal against Jim Rutherford, who gave up 6 goals in the second period. Gary Bergman did score for Detroit, but then Montreal put up 6 goals in 16 minutes of the second period. Cornway with 2, Mark Tardif with 2, Leon Rochefort and Frank Mahovlich with the others. So 6-1. So now we got LA and California, right? Nope, they're moving. So they'll move LA to face Boston and California to face Montreal. So it won't be LA versus California. Weird. Toronto, Chicago, and Minnesota, New York Rangers. So those are your quarterfinals. First game of the quarterfinals, Cal Montreal. Montreal in California and won 6-4 as Gary Suke Smith lost to Phil Meyer. California goes by Bert Marshall, Jerry Eggman, Ernie Hick, and Dennis Hextall. Montreal goes by Mark Tardif. Yeah, he was a Montreal guy. Frank Mahovlich, Serge Savard, Jacques Lemaire, Leon Rochefort, and Yvon Cornwallier. So 6 different halves scored. Game 1, Minnesota Rangers. Rangers win in Minnesota 4-1 as Jackman beat Menego. Danny Grant did score 7 goals of the playoffs for Minnesota, but Rangers goals by Bob Nevin, Dave Ballin, who's looking good, Raj Gilbert, and Vic Hatfield. LA Boston game 1 saw Boston go to LA and win 5-2 as DeJordy left Chicago to play LA, lost to Eddie Johnston. Mike Byers and Eddie Joyo with goals for the Kings. Bruins goals by Derek Sanderson, Johnny Busick, Wayne Carlton, Bobby Orr, and Phil Esposito. So 5 different Bruins. Toronto, Chicago. The Leafs win 4-1 game 1 as Jacques Plante beats Tony Esposito. Big one. Blackhawks did score Dennis Hall, but Toronto 4 goals. Norm Ullman, Ron Ellis, Jim Dory finally scoring, and Jerry Monahan scoring a goal. Game 2, Minnesota Rangers. So the Rangers win 5-4. They're up 2-0. Vermeer beats Gump Worsley. New York goes by Bill Fairburn, Glenn Saver. Yeah, that Glenn Saver. Andre Moose Dupont, Dave Ballin, and Rod Gilbert. Minnesota goes by J.B. Parise, Bill Goldsworthy, Charlie Burns, and Danny Grant. LA Boston game 2 saw LA win 6-5. Big win. DeShorty beats Cheevers. Boston goes by Ed Westfall, Phil Esposito, Bobby Orr, Wayne Cashman, and then Wayne Carlton. LA goes by Larry Grenier, Bob Pulford, Dave Robinson, Mike Byers, Byers again, and Bob Pulford with the winning goal. Game 2 of Toronto, Chicago. Leafs win again, 4-1. Perron beats Desjardins this time. Blackhawks did score a goal by Dave Maloney. Toronto goes by Norm Ullman with 2, Dave Keon and Paul Henderson. Meanwhile, game 2, Montreal crushed California in the fine powder 7-2. Vachon beats Suitcase. Bill Hick and Gary Jarrett score for the California Golden Seals. Montreal goes by Bobby Sheehan, Peter Mahovlich, John Ferguson, Yvon Cornwallier, Guy Lapointe, Yvon Cornwallier, and Pete Mahovlich. So Cornwallier's now got 10 goals, the first to 10. Game 3s, LA Boston starts off, and Boston crushes LA like a grape 7-1. Cheevers beats Shorty. LA's goal was scored by Russ Lonsberry, future Flyer. Bruins goals by Johnny Busick, Busick again, Phil Esposito, Don Marcotte, Fred Stanfield, and Johnny Busick with a hat trick. Toronto Chicago game 3 sees the Blackhawks win on home ice. Espo with a shutout. Dennis Hall from Pit Martin Lumignani, and then Cliff Coral from Stan Mikita and Paul Schmier. Game 3 sees Montreal at home crush California 7-3. Suitcases in the Vachon. California goals by Jerry Cruto, Dennis Hextall, and Dennis Hextall. Montreal goals. Yvon Cornouaille, John Ferguson Sr., Jacques Lemaire, Pete Mahovlich, Serge Savard, and Réjean Houle. Yeah, he played for the 71 team. I'm shocked too. And last game 3 sees the Rangers with the shutout 3-0. As Jackman got the shutout over Worsley, Walkachek, Kitchener, John Rattel, and Bill Fairbairn scoring for the Rangers. Game 4s. Toronto starts off against Chicago, and Chicago overtime heroics. Espo beats Pont. Chico Mackey scored in the first period from Maloney and Papin. But Normie Ullman has 7 from Bond, and Keon made it 1-1. Overtime at 15:55. Chico Mackey does again. It's Chico time from Cliff Coral and Denny Hall. Montreal sweeps California 5-1. Phil Meyer was the guy who did it against UK Smith. Gary Jarrett scored for California. Montreal goes by Pete Mahovlich, Sean Belleville, Guy Lapointe, Jacques Lemaire, and then Cornouaille putting one in the net. So Montreal sweeping California 8. Seriously right for this, for getting that bye. Rangers win 7-2 over Minnesota, sweep them as Gilles Javert. Yeah, he was for Minnesota at that time. Lost to Gilles Vermeer. Minnesota goals by Danny Grant, his 9th and 10th. Pretty good for Grant getting 10 goals, but they got swept. Rangers. Rod Gilbert, Dave Ballin, Rod Sealing, Kitchener. Bob Devin, Ted Irvin, break the walls down. Pete Stamkowski, and Rod Sealing again. LA Boston. Boston wins 4-3. They're 1 win away. As Johnston beats DeJourny. Boston goes by Wayne Carleton, Phil Esposito, Wayne Cashman, and Esposito again. LA goals by Ruff, Backstrom, Uno Winning, and Mike Byers. They were looking good. They're still technically in it. Anyway, game 5s. LA Boston goes first, and Boston wins in LA. Johnston beats Norris. LA goes by Bob Berry, Mike Byers, and Ruff Backstrom. Yeah, Byers with 5 goals in 5 games. But anyway, Boston, Derek Sanderson, Jim McKenzie, Johnny Busick, Ken Hodge, Phil Esposito, and Don Marcotte. So 6 different Bruins doing the job. And Chicago beats Toronto. Toronto having a chance on home ice with Bernie Perrant. Lost to Esposito. Chicago scored the first 3 goals. Chico Mackey again. Dennis Hall and Stan Mikita. Mike Pellick and Jim Dory scored for Toronto. Game 6. Whew. Oh, sorry. Chicago won in overtime. Toronto was up 2-0 and they blew it. Espo beats Plant. Overtime. Dennis Hall from Dave Maloney and Bobby Hall. Then Toronto scored with Dave Keon, his 4th from Ullman and Monahan. But at overtime, Brian Campbell from Stan Mikita and Jerry Korab. And the Leafs lose. So the final 4 are the Rangers, Bruins, Blackhawks, Habs. Man. Original 6. Yeah, it's all about the original 6, huh? 4 of the original 6. Game 1, Rangers, Bruins. Saw overtime heroics by the Rangers. Van Moon beat the Chiefers. Boston goes by Wayne Cashman, Phil Esposito, Ed Westfall, Johnny Busick, and Don Awry in regulation. Rangers goal by Brad Park, Ted Irvin, Break the Walls Down, Bob Nevin, Irvin, you know that song, and Dave Bowland in regulation. But in overtime at 2:17, Walkachuk, Kitchener, from Sean Rattel and Davey Bowland. Chicago, Montreal. Montreal wins 5-4 as Rocky Vachon beats Gary Desjardins. Montreal goes by Jean Beliveau, Mark Tardif, Yvon Cornouaille, Réjean Houle, Yvon Cornouaille, up to 14 for him. Pat Stapleton, Bobby Hall, Dennis Hall, and Chico Mackey scoring for the Blackhawks. Game 2 of Chicago-Montreal. Montreal wins 7-5. Vachon beats Espo. High-scoring game. Montreal, Réjean Houle, Mark Tardif, Phil Roberto, John Ferguson, Henri Richard, J.C. Tremblay, and Henri Richard again. Chicago. Louis Gotti, Jerry Korab, Bobby Hall, Pat Stapleton, and Dennis Hall. So I don't think anyone scored 2 goals in this game. Oh, Richard did, but anyway. Rangers-Boston game 2 saw Bruins win 5-3. They split the first 2 games in New York. Johnston beats Jackman. Ranger goals by Dave Ballin, Rod Gilbert, and Vic Hatfield. Boy, Ballin's been on fire. 10 goals. Wayne Carleton, Phil Esposito with the hat trick. Gets 14, and Ed Westfall. Boston Ranger back to Boston for Game 3. And overtime heroics by the Rangers. As for Moon Beach Cheevers, Boston goes in regulation. Phil Esposito, Jim McKenzie. Phil Esposito is 16th, and Johnny Busick. Dave Bowlen, Jim Nielsen, John Rattel, and Vic Hadfield scoring for the Rangers in regulation. After McKenzie went off for Hoking, Bob Nevin his 7th from Brad Park. Chicago went into Montreal, won 5-1. Desjardins beat Fasham. Montreal, Cornway got his 15th, but anyway, Bobby Hall with 2 goals, Stan Mikita, Dennis Hall, and Chico Mackey with singlets. Game 4, Chicago-Montreal. Montreal won 5-2. Vachon beats Desjardins. Chicago goals by Jim Pappen and Brian Campbell, but Montreal scored John Ferguson with 2, Jacques Lemaire with 2, and Cornway with his 16th, trying to catch Espo for the goal-scoring lead. Rangers win 4-3 in Boston. Big win. Jackman beats Cheevers, so now the Rangers are up 3-1. Boston goals by Derek Sanderson with 2, and Espo his 17th, trying to get that goal-scoring thing. Dave Bowlen, Jean Rattel, Bruce McGregor, and, well, Kajak Kitchener with the goals for the Rangers. Do the Rangers win Game 5? The answer is yes, they do. 5-0, shutout Boston. Jackman with the big shutout. Boston, 71 Bruins. Fuck. Boy, oh boy. Boys. Love you, boys. Anyway, well, Kachuk, Kitchener, Ted Irvin, break the walls down. Jim Nielsen, Vic Hadfield, and Bob Nevin are your heroes for the Rangers as they get to the championship. Will Montreal join them? The answer is not yet. Chicago wins 5-1. Desjardins beats Phil Meyer. Should have put Drennan in that if you were going to change away from Rogie. Montreal only goal was by Frank Mahovlich, his 6th. Chicago goals by Jim Pappen, Stan Mikita, Jerry Korab, Jim Pappen again, and Brian Campbell. Boom, boom. And in Game 6, finally Montreal wins 5-2 as Meyer, Brown. Who the hell is Brown? They win with an unknown goalie for Game 6. Phil Meyer with the win. Eric Nestorenko finally scoring a goal, and Bobby Hall scoring. Montreal, J.C. Tremblay, Jean Beliveau, Tremblay again, Guy Lapointe, and Réjean Houle. 5-2. So it's down to Montreal and the Rangers. Rangers? Vermoon 7-1, Jackman 5-1. They've only lost twice. They lost 1 game to Buffalo, 1 game to Boston, none to Minnesota. So they had to go through the preliminary round. Also did Montreal. So man, 12-2 these Rangers are. They're in the final. Montreal again gets to a final. Rattel's got 24 points. Dave Bowlen's got 18. But Bowlen's got 12 goals. So Jean Rattel looking good with assists. He has 18 of them. Montreal? 3 goalies. Vachon 7-2. Phil Myers 4-1. That's good. Ken Dryden's 1-0. They had a 5-game beating of Detroit. They swept California. Chicago gave them a scare. I think because Chicago got to the final in 71 and neither did Boston didn't. Chicago will be the 3 seed and get themselves a spot. Yeah, Chicago gets to the final, so they'll get one of those 3rd place spots automatically. I know there's one 3rd place team that will not get in, but Chicago definitely got into the final, so that's what helps them. Yvonne Cornway and J.C. Tremblay both with 26 points. Cornway with 16 goals. We're off to the final. Game 1 sees the Rangers in a shutout 5-0 as Jackman shuts out Fashon. Vic Hadfield, Jack Eagers scoring a goal. Penny Stemkowski, Walkachek, Kitchener, and Jim Nielsen, your heroes for the Rangers. Then we have Game 2, and it sees the Rangers win in overtime. Jackman beats Phil Meyer. Montreal went with a new goalie. Rangers were up 4-2. Rod Gilbert, Bob Nevin, Ted Irvin break the walls down. And Dave Bowlen scoring for the Rangers. Montreal goals by Serge Savard. Cornway put up number 17. John Ferguson and Johnny Belleville. But in overtime at 2:31, Stemkowski got a pass and scored a circle from Vic Hadfield and Jean Rattel. Rangers win 5-4. Take it to another series lead. Game 3 sees the Rangers win again in overtime as Vermeuren came in against Phil Meyer. Ranger goes in regulation. Vic Hadfield, Jean Rattel, Ted Irvin break the walls down. And Jean Rattel his 2nd. Montreal goals by John Ferguson, Jacques Lemaire, Jean Beliveau, and Cornway his 18th. But in overtime at 7:54, Dave Bowlen his 14th from Bill Fairburn. Will the Rangers sweep Montreal? The answer is they will. 3-2. 3 1-goal wins for the Rangers. Jackman is the hero, and the New York Rangers win. You know what the weird thing is? The 65, 68, 71 tournaments, Montreal got to the finals, but Montreal got swept. Montreal keeps losing the finals. Unbelievable. You're going to have so many second-place teams for Montreal. Jackman beats Fashon. Rangers goes by Walkachuk, Kitchener, Jean Mattel and Jean Mattel. Lemaire and P. Mahovlich for Montreal, but the Rangers win 3-2. Let's look at the Rangers stats. Unbelievable. Jackman and Vermoon both 8-1. So they shared equally. Jackman with a 1.85 goals against average and 3 shutouts. Man, Vermoon 8-1. They took care of Buffalo in 5, Minnesota in 4, Boston in 5, and Montreal with a sweep. Unbelievable. Jean Mattel with 30 points. Great. Dave Bowlin, second with 23. Kachuk, my man from Kitchener, 21. Rod Sealy with 11. Jack Eagers and Glenn Saver only scored 1 goal, but it doesn't matter. 14 for Bowlin, 10 by Mattel, 9 by Nevin. So, yeah, the Rangers just freaking dominated in the 71 thing. So they'll be moving on as a 1 seed. So that's good. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.